everyone. Welcome to our Calgary Flames trade deadline preview show. We are pleased to be welcomed by Game Over Calgary host Auddie James. Auddie, how you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no worries, boys. I was looking forward to this one. I'm doing well. And I'm not sure I can say the same for the Calgary Flames, but you know what? We'll get into it. It's gonna be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
So, first question: Uyghur to the Sens? Question mark.
How do you leave a call on Riverside? I put out a tweet. It's funny. I actually put out a tweet like last week at some point, and it's not all Sens fans, but I'm like, holy hell! Like Sens fans are insufferable with the Uyghur to Ottawa stuff. It is crazy. I'm like, man, like I truly, from the bottom of my heart, do not think that the Calgary Flames are going to be moving on from Mackenzie Uyghur, nor should they. It just doesn't make sense. You bring a guy in and give him a 7-year extension. It's not very common practice to see those people, unless you're named JT Miller. I've heard his name floating around for real. But it's not common you see those guys flipped this early on. And Mackenzie Uyghur hasn't been a problem, I don't think, for Calgary. So it's not like they actively need to try to get rid of him. But yeah, it's crazy to see some of these proposals that people come up with, because it's A, it's not going to happen, and B, they're just like ridiculous. Like I remember seeing some like really, really, really bad proposals, and they're just laughable at this point.
Just like nonsense,
so
like Lassie Thompson in a third or something. Like
I saw one involving Brandstrom, and I'm like, I really don't think that like that's the guy that Calgary would be going after.
No,
in a Mackenzie Uyghur trade. So
that's definitely a Daryl Sutter player right there.
Yeah, Eric Brandstrom, big time Daryl Sutter guy.
Yeah, that was not a legitimate question. That was us just poking the bear.
Yeah.
No, but for real though, Calgary's kind of in a weird spot. Very middle of the pack this year. Playoff hopes are a bit bleak unless they go on a run. Their whole team seems to be locked into long-term contracts. What do you see them doing ahead of the deadline, if anything?
It's going to be a pretty typical Brad Treliving trade deadline. Like it's going to be very minimal. It's going to be some depth blue liners, maybe a bottom six center who can crash and bang, and maybe a guy who's played for Daryl before, got some Stanley Cup experience perhaps. Look, until last year, the Flames went out and they were in a much better spot last year come the trade deadline, and it was clear that this team was going to go on a run. They go out and they pick up Tyler Toffoli on Valentine's Day, that infamous Valentine's Day gift that Flames fans didn't ask for, but sure we're happy to see. Tyler Toffoli comes in, then at the deadline they go out and they bring in Kalle Järnkrok, who didn't do a whole heck of a lot, but is seemingly fitting in like a glove in Toronto. So that was a bit of an unorthodox trade deadline. You don't really see Brad Treliving push all his chips in the middle and say, let's go all in and let's do something here. Previous to that, he'd go out and he got, I think it was Derek Forbort the year before, Derek Forbort and Eric Gustafsson the year before. And then prior to that, his only trade deadline move was bringing in Oscar Fantenberg, forever a Flame.
Yes.
But Oscar Fantenberg, right? He's up there with like Jyrki Jokipaka and all-time Calgary Flames. So there's a Sens connection there too.
Yeah.
I see it going down similar to something like this year. He's going to buy. I think it's inevitable that he's going to go out and he's going to buy, but it's not going to be the sexy pieces that it's not going to be a Timo Meier. It's not going to be none of those big names, big deal trades. But he's going to go out. He's going to do something to add some depth. He loves having his depth blue liners, especially with Michael Stone out now. Oliver Shillington, we don't know if he's coming back. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, I see it shaking up kind of similar to how we've seen it prior to last year. So I guess we'll see, but that's kind of what I'm anticipating.
What do you think the biggest need is? Like, what would you do, or what do you really want to see?
Man, do you guys have enough time for me to say what the biggest need is? Right now, like leading up to this deadline, I think it's been the Flames have a clear lack of finish, and I actually reviewed it last night on Game Over. Their shooting percentage compared to where they rank in the league compared to how many shots on goal they get. Would you, before we go further, would you care to guess on where they sit in terms of average shots on goal per game in the league?
31st. Just by the way you're talking about it.
26th.
Second in the NHL for shots on goal.
Oh.
Would you care to guess where they are for shooting percentage?
26th.
I believe it was 29th as of last night when we recorded. So there's a clear relation there between the shooting percentage and the shots on goal. Getting lots of shots doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have any good chances. They're getting lots of perimeter shooting. So I guess to summarize in a nutshell, in a very roundabout way, I would have told you probably a couple months ago that like someone for the middle six who can score, I don't know, maybe a guy like Nino Niederreiter who just went for a second would have been sweet. It would have been nice to know he was available. I don't know. Right now, I got to be honest with you. I want them to sell off. I don't think this is the year they go for it. I think it would be more profitable for the long term to kind of sell some pieces off. I don't see that happening. Daryl Sutter has been on the record to say he did not come here to rebuild. He came here to win hockey games and win a Stanley Cup. Brad Treliving is on his last year of his contract. I don't think he's going to be selling off for the future when he's not even going to be here. I think he makes a couple small ads. But yeah, I mean, the finishing is definitely something that they need to work with, and I think they're going to go out and inevitably get a blue liner. I don't think Shillington's coming back. Someone who can kind of play that same role that he played. He was kind of he was a top four guy in Calgary, lots of speed, moved the puck really well. Not the most defensively responsible defenseman, but was able to jump up on the rush. And I think that's something that the Flames are lacking, is that speed, the ability to move the puck the way Shillington did. So maybe a replacement level player for him. But aside from that, it's a wild card, boys. I literally am coming into this trade deadline with no real expectation on what this team's going to do, nor do I really know what this team's going to do. I don't know what to expect, and I don't know what they're going to do because they're stuck in that perpetual mediocrity, and it's a place that Flames fans are all too familiar with.
That's just where I wanted to kind of go next, is that I haven't heard anything attached to the Flames at all kind of leading up to this trade deadline. Not any names that they might be bringing in, names that they might be shipping out. I guess on either side, have you heard anything in terms of specific names that they might be looking to bring in? I guess you kind of alluded earlier that they almost 95%, if not more, won't sell off. But if they were, who are a few of the guys that might be candidates there as well?
So some names that have kind of been discussed in this market were JVR, who has sat out. I think he sat out last night, actually, for trade-related. We're seeing a whole lot of that now, too, right?
Yeah.
Trade-related reasons. You never used to see that in the NHL. But it's kind of cool, actually. I kind of
big
dig
NBA thing.
Yeah.
Kind of made its way over here this
Love
year.
it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that because teams would say that they're sitting and it's around trade deadline time, and you're like, you know exactly why they're getting, why they're not playing. But JVR was kind of brought up. I know some people have brought up Sam Lafferty out of Chicago. A lot of people were pushing for McCabe and Lafferty, but we know damn well McCabe's not going to come to Calgary. I think the only Canadian team he's willing to go to would be the Leafs, if I'm not mistaken. And
I remember seeing that.
I think he's got. Does he have a no? Yeah, he's got to have something some kind of no trade.
If I'm not mistaken, I read he either has literally a 6-team no trade list or a 10-team, and six of the Canadian teams are on it except for Toronto.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. It was along those lines too. But to talk about the shipping out part, I think a player the Flames don't have too many high valuable guys on expiring deals right now, unless you are really in the market for a Milan Lucic, which I don't think anybody in their right mind should be. He's going to come off the books. I know damn well he's probably going to get a league min deal to come back to Calgary, but that's for another day. But to bring it back to it doesn't have to be a pending UFA. Like we said, we just saw Nino Niederreiter get traded. He's still got some term left on that deal. Winnipeg only had to give up a second. I think that's some pretty tidy work right there. And it's for next year's draft, so it's incredibly in the magic beans bag there. You don't even know what you're really getting there. But a player like, I don't know, Elias Lindholm, I'm sure could fetch you something good. Tyler Toffoli has been playing lights out in Calgary. He's got this year and next year left on his deal. He could probably net you something pretty good. Michael Backlund has been playing well. I don't exactly remember when he comes up. That might be around the same time as Lindholm and Toffoli. Yeah. But he's been, the way he's playing now, just looking at his analytics, like he should be the front runner, if not top two for the Selke this year. He's so damn good, and nobody seems to really appreciate his two-way game. But yeah, that would be just a couple names that you could probably sell off and maybe get some recoup some assets for. I wouldn't even mind the Flames doing something similar to what the Blues are doing. Like they're just kind of trying to adjust on the fly, and that might be what it takes. Like the Blues are acknowledging that this isn't going to be the year. They sell off some pending UFAs. They bring in some pieces. They don't go full tank. Maybe there's a chance Calgary does that. I don't really see it, but I would like to see it. But aside from that, yeah, I don't really know. There haven't. You're right. There really haven't been too many names linked to the Flames as of this point.
So, I know you mentioned earlier that you would like to see Calgary maybe have a soft sell. But then dropping names like Backlund, Lindholm, Toffoli, like those are significant pieces. Like, do you think those are guys that are gone by next year's offseason, or do you think those are guys Calgary ever looks into extending? Like Lindholm was he scored 40 goals last year. He's a 28-year-old first-line center kind of guy. Like that's a significant step back if you move on from those guys.
Those guys don't grow on trees either. So like think about the yield you bring in for a guy like him.
Yeah.
Not that I want to see it, but like. At this point, too, the Flames have a lot of big contracts for a long time coming up here. Is Elias Lindholm going to price himself out of an extension in Calgary? Maybe. I think that maybe I don't know. We could talk all day about things the Flames could do to try to save money and maybe save some money down the line for a guy like Lindholm to re-sign. Jacob Markstrom could probably walk the plank with that $6 million contract. But yeah, they are pretty significant names to come back to your point. But I wouldn't be opposed to a retool on the fly if it meant that players like that were expendable. And I don't want to lose those players. And I don't think Flames fans want to lose those players either. But just thinking of the return you could get, like there's two centers right there. Like Michael Backlund is playing on the third line right now, but he could easily be in anybody's top six, right? I'm pretty certain that a two-way center like Michael Backlund could be sought after by at least a dozen other teams that are going down the stretch here heading into the playoffs. So I don't know. Yeah, I just to bring it loop it all back. I don't know if it's going to be a sell, a retool on the fly, or it's the most uncertain time in Calgary. The fans are at each other's throats. There's so many people that are just friggin' losing it on social media at each other, just agreeing, disagreeing, and oh man, it's quite the time. It's quite the time.
How's Noah Hannafin doing? He's always been a guy that I've been super interested in, dating back to the McDavid draft. And I remember that trade where he and Lindholm went to Calgary from Carolina, and I thought that maybe Noah Hannafin could really explode into a number one guy. Has he really shown any signs of that? Because he's also on that same sort of contract status, being UFA after next season.
If Oliver Shillington comes back, Noah Hannafin is so tradable. He is so tradable. Serviceable enough guy. Has had a bit of a slump here these past couple of weeks, even defensively. I've just noticed he's making a couple blunders here and there, but that's just the product on the ice. The Flames have been good at that all year. But he could very well be a great chip to ship on to another team that could use another top two pairing defenseman. Yeah, he hasn't been, like I said, to kind of summarize it, he hasn't been a game breaker, or he hasn't really moved the needle incredibly, but he's still a serviceable enough guy. he's a workhorse, and like I said, like I think that if the Flames were to sell, that's a piece, especially if Shillington comes back, that makes Noah Hannafin all the more tradable.
And his age plays a huge factor too. Like he's only 26, which is kind of wild. Seems like he's been in the league forever.
He's been around forever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he'll be an unrestricted free agent. I don't know when his birthday is, but he'll be at most 28 years old when he hits unrestricted free agency. So that guy, he'll fetch a pretty penny in free agency. So definitely a piece that Calgary could look to sell. So all in all, so Noah Hannafin's been good this year though. Like, is he living up to the potential?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, he's always just kind of been what he is. Like, it's kind of like hard to put Noah Hannafin's game into words. You know, he's not afraid to jump in on the rush too. He's smart with the puck. Like I said too, like a couple defensive blunders, like, but every D man has that. A bad pinch here and there, or a bad clear here and there. But all in all, yeah, like he's good. Like he's a damn good player, and you know, it wouldn't be great to see Calgary move on from him. But like I said, Shillington comes back, and I'm not banking on Shillington coming back. I'll tell you right now, full transparency, I do not think he's going to be back this year. But if by some miracle he is, then yeah, maybe you could explore that route of finding a new home for Noah.
Yeah, and we talked about how a good possibility for the Flames is that they kind of take the retool on the fly situation here that we've seen a couple teams commit to. Often when we see that, it's around a pretty solidified core of young talent. How do you feel about the level of young talent in the Flames organization right now? And do you think that's something that they need to prioritize going forward?
Oh yeah, they do. The Flames have a plethora of young talent waiting in the ranks that, as long as Daryl Sutter's here, will likely not get their chance. Jacob Pelletier, the fact that he's been as impressive as he is and he's stuck around for as long as he has is it stands out to me. I know he's been playing really well since his call-up, but it's very uncharacteristic of Daryl to A, give a young guy a chance, and B, especially with his size. He's not a very big dude. He plays like a big guy. He goes to the dirty areas. He does a lot of really good things. But Matty Phillips, he's another player who could have had a fair shot this year. He played, I think, 2 games, totaled 14 minutes of time on ice, and they shipped him back down. Connor Zary has been good. Walker Dewar, who's up, has been playing pretty well too. And then just some guy that is waiting in the ranks called Dustin Wolf, who just happens to be the biggest steal of a 7th-round pick ever, who's going to be the best goalie in the AHL for the 2nd year in a row. But he's under 6 feet. He is not Jacob Markstrom. He's not Dan Vladar, so he's not going to probably be up here anytime soon. To make a long story short, yes, they need to prioritize, especially I think this year, like this offseason could be huge for a lot of players to step up and backfill some bottom 6 roles. Trevor Lewis will be gone. Milan Lucic will be gone. There's going to be 2 vacancies right there, assuming the Flames don't give those guys league min deals and bring them back. But I really think it would be important, like salary cap wise, for the Flames, who are going to be pretty strapped, to backfill some roles with some league min players and some players that are ready to make that jump. I just don't know if that's going to happen, and if it does, how fast it's going to happen. Like, I don't think it's like a start of next year thing, like right at a camp, but we'll see. I've been proven wrong before.
Coach not playing the young players sounds familiar, eh, Ryan?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you guys know that all too well.
So, yeah. What's up with Huberdeau? Are you worried about that contract yet? Sorry, this is like a complete 180 from what we were just talking about. But I've been wanting to get it off my chest.
I guess the saving grace is it doesn't kick in until next year.
Fair.
And he's still making whatever. Was he making like 5.9?
Yeah,
something like that. Mm-hmm. So whatever, it is what it is. It's been a fall from grace. Yeah, I mean, he put up 115 points last year, and he's at, I think, just shy of 40. Like, he's only got 10 goals on the year. The stat I read last night was Linus Allmark and Jonathan Huberdeau have the same amount of goals in the month of February, which struck me to my core.
That is tough.
That like kind of sent me on a bit of a trip there. But yeah, it was
a low blow.
It is a low blow, definitely. But yeah, I'm not overly worried. I think at this point in the season, I'm ready to mail it in for the Flames. Like, it's almost at that point where I think they wave the white flag. Like, look, boys, the Preds are not far behind the Flames right now in the wild card race, and they're already selling off.
Yeah.
Right? Like, teams are recognizing, okay, you know what? This might not be our year. What can we recoup for some of these players that, you know, and I love what St. Louis is doing to bring it back to them again. They're retool on the fly. They know that O'Reilly fetched them a pretty penny. They got a good return for Tarasenko. They just traded Barbashev today for another young player, which is cool. I like to see those 1-for-1s where it's like, okay, good player going out, good young player coming back in, like a good hockey deal. And I think Dean's going to be good for the Blues. I really do. But like, yeah, I lost my train of thought completely, but I do want to see like a retool on the fly, if at all possible. We'll see what happens. And to bring it back to Jonathan Huberdeau, call it what it is this year. Hope to God you find it next year. And if not, buckle up, Flames fans. It's going to be a long 8 years of that. But I hope that this is just a blip in the radar for him, and he returns to kind of that form. And you know who would help with that? Anthony Duclair. Yeah. Another name that I forgot to bring up that the Flames fans really want to see.
Yeah, he's back now, right?
He's back. The Panthers are... I actually haven't even checked the standings. I don't know where they sit right now.
They're in that mushy middle in the East right now.
That mushy middle that every other team not named Tampa, Toronto, and Boston are in?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nasty.
The Eastern Conference standings are ridiculous, and
it is a mess.
The Wests are so boring.
Look at this. Like, I didn't realize that, like, the Penguins sit in the second wild card spot right now, 65 points. Buffalo, Detroit, Florida, and Washington all at 64.
Yep.
And then the Sens, with 3 games in hand on most of these teams, are at 60.
Yeah.
So, like, anybody could, like, the Sens could still sneak in.
They've got a doubleheader with Detroit Monday, Tuesday.
That's huge.
It's the most important games Ottawa's seen in, like, 5 years.
And they're playing pretty well right now.
So,
are they? Kind of. You guys both kind of went silent.
Well, they lost 2 in a row to the 2 best teams in the league, but they just beat Montreal 5-2. So we'll see if they can. We'll see if they can. They really need to win both those games to have any kind of shot to really get back in the race. Yeah.
It doesn't help when you start every season 6-12. I mean, so
it's the Sens way, baby.
It's
That's
the Sens way.
Yeah.
Sorry, circling back to Huberdeau, who's he been playing? Who's he been playing with this year? Like,
so he started the year on the first line with Toffoli, and who did they have on the wing? He's played on the opposite wing of Lucic for a little bit. Yeah, there was a time when top 6 Lucic was a thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they tried him. They kind of tried him out everywhere. There was even a point where he was down on the third line. But for the last little while, it's been until Peltier got called up. It was Lucic, Kadri, Huberdeau. But since the Peltier call up, it's been Huberdeau, Kadri, Peltier. And
I like that.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun. Peltier has thrived. Growing up, he was a Huberdeau fan. Like, the whole French connection there is kind of cool. And you're starting to see a little bit of chemistry. A lot of people, I think, online are starting to talk about the whole possibility of if Nazem Kadri is the problem on that line. And the more I watch the Flames play, the more I kind of agree with that. He's a bit of a... Like, if you watch Jonathan Huberdeau play in Florida, like how good he was with the puck and how cohesive he worked as a unit with his line mates, I just don't think that's what he's getting from Nazem Kadri. Kadri likes to hold on to the puck a little bit too much, and it just doesn't like it just doesn't jive well with the way Huberdeau plays, if you know what I'm trying to say. But I think the saving grace is Peltier's there. They've got their chemistry going, and maybe if Kadri can just kind of clean it up a little bit, it'll look a little bit better. But yeah, for the better part of this season, he's played with Kadri. He had Lucic on the wing. He had Peltier. He played with Toffoli. Oh yeah, it was Toffoli, Lindholm, Huberdeau, and that just did not work whatsoever.
That's
I think
surprising.
Lindholm straight up said that like there was no chemistry there. Like it just could not. They just couldn't get it to work.
That's really surprising because I was just about to ask you, like, has Huberdeau been given a shot with Lindholm? Because, like, Huberdeau had his career season and was a point-a-game guy up until last year playing next to Alexander Barkov, who's like a year-in, year-out Selke guy. And Lindholm very much showed some Barkov flashes last season. I don't know if it's been much of the same in terms of his defensive prowess, but you'd think that would work. Like, with a goal-scoring defensive ace at center.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. They didn't try it out for as long as they had the experiment here with Kadri, but yeah, definitely not what you would expect, right? So I don't know. It seems to be okay. Like I don't hate the way the lines are kind of constructed right now, but I mean they still are in desperate need of some middle six scoring, a winger, but like those don't grow on trees. Like they're going to pay out the ass for those guys at the deadline, and I just don't think the Flames should do that.
Yeah, just unrelated a little bit, but just since you brought up his name, I think it was Peltier, right? Who?
Yep.
It was. Sorry, I'm pretty sure he got. It was him who had the jersey. Like it was Sutter who completely just like threw him under the bus after his first game, right? Yep. I think that had us very fired up, and we were not very happy about it. I just like, since you brought up his name, I'd love to get your quick take on that kind of situation with Daryl Sutter completely throwing him kind of under the bus after his first game.
I didn't like that either. I think it was more so just Daryl having his way with the media like he likes to do. Shout out to Salim Valji from TSN who asked the question and seems to freaking ask all the great questions, and then Sutter just dunks on him. So shout out to Salim for going through that. But yeah, it was I remember because I did Game Over that night, and I didn't watch the post game the presser, and so yeah, I saw somebody in the chat say, something along the lines of, "Oh, Sutter doesn't even remember his jersey number." I'm like, "Oh yeah, like that's hilarious." And then people were like, "No," like they were sending me the tweets, and like it was the video of him, Salim saying, "What'd you think of Peltier?" and Sutter being, "Oh, what number was he?" 49. And then he pulled up the game sheet. Jacob Peltier, 9:05 ice time, no penalty minutes, 2 shots on goal, and he just read the stat sheet, whatever. Yeah. That kind of pissed me off. But that's and it's stupid to say, but that's Daryl. That's Daryl for you. That's just what he does. Yeah. And it shouldn't be much of a surprise anymore that he talks the way he does to the media about players. And I don't know if Jacob was. I think it came out after that Jacob was like whatever, like he didn't really care that much about it. But yeah, I think the fans took that a lot more personally than it actually was.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
in the room.
Do you think he plays stuff like that up like a lot more than it is at face value? Like, do you think he purely does it to screw with people in the media?
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Like I went for lunch with Julian McKenzie last week, and we were talking about like just some of the stuff that he's asked and some things that he's, I'm not going to disclose what he said, but he's like, some of the things he wants to ask, but he can't ask because it's Daryl, right? Like there's no way you could never pose a question to make Daryl, take accountability for the team, right? Because has Daryl really taken accountability all year? No, right? And, you could never really pose it that way to him. You can't ask him about certain things and expect a legitimate response, right? So the media, it's a tough, and kudos to all the Calgary media too, because it's a tough gig when you got a guy like Daryl Sutter at the realm here. But it's definitely just played up, and what happens with the media is much more played up with them than it is in the room. 100%. I would bet the farm on it.
Last one from me. Do you think this team needs a coaching change after the season?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very quick.
They could have used a coaching change after like the halfway point of the year.
Okay. So just
100%.
Expanding on that, every team in NHL history sort of gets a new coach bump. As soon as you hire a coach, you go on a run. Let's say Calgary comes into the year next year with a new coach. Do you think like this team, as currently constructed with the core they have in place, the guys that they have, is capable of like replicating last year's success? Or do you think this is kind of the new normal for Calgary, trying to like scrap and claw into the playoffs with a bit of an aging core that's kind of locked in for a while?
I hate to break it to you, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but it's not new.
Okay.
That whole scrapping into the play, like last year was great. Like outside of that, they've been a every now and then first round of the playoffs kind of team, right? Make a bit of a run. Their last good run was 2004. Obviously, go to the Cup final and lose to Tampa. But since even before then, their best playoff run was 1989, and it has been like they've been stuck in perpetual mediocrity hell since 1989, and it's I don't know what the problem is. But to answer your point about the coaching change, I don't want to. It's hard to compare last year's team to this group on paper because everybody had a career year last year. Like Gaudreau put up stupid numbers. Tkachuk was disgusting. Lindholm was disgusting. Everybody was playing out of their mind. Markstrom was up for the Vezina, right? They lost. I think they were one of, if not the fewest man games missed from injury.
Yep.
And that was just an anomaly season. Just like you can't, it's so hard to compare it. But I think under the right circumstances in a different system, this team can thrive under a new coach. I truly think the Huberdeau failure has a lot to do with Daryl Sutter and his system. It's just, he does not fit. It's okay to be a player to not fit a system. And Jonathan Huberdeau is the kind of player that does not play well under Daryl Sutter's system, and that's fine. But you know what you do if you're upper management is you freaking cater to your star player who you just signed for 8 years, who's going to go get you, like, try to get you a Stanley Cup, and you say, okay, let's find someone whose system is you can play under. I don't know. I know he's got a Dewey, but how about Andrew Burnett?
I was just about to say it.
Right?
I was just about to say it.
Like, Dewey aside, that's a system he thrived under.
Yep.
Go get a Duclair, bring in Brunette. Hell, if you want to inject a youth movement, promote Mitch Love from AHL Calgary. There's ways to go about it, boys. It's just, I don't know why they're making it so painstakingly difficult for themselves. They're doing it to themselves, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. A lot of teams in this league have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot with decisions, and it's really incredible and frustrating to see at the same time.
It is, and I really hope that something gives here. I want to see vintage Huberdeau with this team.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody in this fan base wants to see vintage, and we're seeing flashes of it. But it's I would bet whatever on it that you could chalk it up to the system.
Yeah.
Jonathan Huberdeau is way too good of a player to go from 115 points the year before to 38 or whatever the hell he's at right now. Like, way too good. He's way too good, and he's and it's. I just, like, it's so hard to quantify. You can't put it into words. It's just so frustrating, but it is what it is.
I think Calgary fans, maybe you disagree. I wouldn't tend to worry about this team, especially because they're going to be around for such a long time. I don't want to worry about this team until you move away from Daryl Sutter.
Yeah,
because this roster was not built for that guy.
No, it wasn't, and
truly was
it's
not.
It's frustrating too because there's lots of rumblings. One of the last times Daryl was coach of this team, he just happened to weasel his way into a front office role, and he was the GM of this hockey club for a little bit of time there, and things were not good. Things were not good. And as we mentioned earlier on this show, Brad Treliving is up for contract renewal this year. And a lot of people in Calgary are wondering if the man behind the bench doesn't end up running the show here. Or they bring in a GM who Daryl Sutter pretty much just mentors, and it's a whole team of Milan Lucic's.
Yeah.
Which is no good for anybody, just for what it's worth. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that.
Ryan, do you have anything else?
Yeah, just really quickly, the last thing I wanted to bring up is you mentioned that they don't really have a ton of, I guess, talent or production on expiring UFA deals, but and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like they have two, maybe one more interesting players, younger players on RFA deals. And I'm just curious if you see them kind of getting any sort of term or making a shot with the club next year. And that is Connor Mackey and, like you mentioned, Matthew Phillips earlier. They're both RFAs, I think, up this year. And
I think Phillips is a UFA. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does it say RFA? I'm pretty sure he's UFA. I'll talk on Connor Mackey while you fact check that, because I could be wrong too.
He's RFA after the season.
Mm-hmm.
He is RFA?
Yeah.
Well, he should just. He's never going to get a shot with this team, and it's unfortunate. I've had him on a show before twice, and he's such a treat. The guy is a local product. He's born and raised in Calgary, played his junior in Victoria in the WHL. And every level he's played at, people love him. And the player is like, he's having back-to-back wicked years in the AHL. If he's RFA, then yeah, he's going to come back and probably just spend more time in the AHL. I don't see him making the jump. And Connor Mackey, there's no value there.
No,
there is zero. I'm sorry to Connor. There is zero value in Connor Mackey. To put this into perspective, when Rasmus Anderson got hit by a car in Detroit and had to miss time, Connor Mackey was with the club, and they elected to call up Dennis Gilbert instead.
That's wild. Why is he with the club then?
I don't know.
The only reason I asked about him because I saw him on the main roster.
Yeah, exactly. He is not good. He's known for having a 2-goal game this year, and that's about it. He is, and I don't like to he is very not good. And there is zero value there. Every team has a Connor Mackey that's rotting away somewhere in their AHL system. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So there's no value.
Okay.
No value.
Nothing for
no value in Connor Mackey.
He's a throw-in in a trade. I'm sorry. There's no value there to he's expiring, but he's a fresh start candidate if anything.
Gotcha.
Interesting. All right, Ryan, I don't know if you have anything else to add. Auddie, unless you have a topic that you wanted to touch on that we missed.
Oh man, you guys hit me with everything. Yeah, this was you really had to test my brain capabilities today. Here I am thinking we're talking trade deadline, we're talking Huberdeau contract,
we jumped all over
we're talking Fire Sutter. I'm getting the bandwagon boys on the bandwagon of Fire Sutter. So
I don't think Calgary's going to be very busy before the deadline. So
no,
it's much more interesting looking at what this team is going to be doing in the next year or two with the amount of guys they have with a year and a half left on their deals. So
yeah, I feel like it's gonna be a few more years of that mediocrity before somebody finally says, "Hey, maybe we should break this thing down to the studs and start over."
For sure. Auddie, do you want to maybe let the listeners know where they can hear you, what you're up to, what you're working on?
Yeah, of course. You can find me on Twitter at Auddie James. That's AUDDIE and then James. And then, listen to me on Game Over Calgary on SDPN Sports, live after every Calgary Flames game, just recapping. I'd recommend going back and listening to the one I did for the Ottawa Senators game. There were a couple decent fellas on that one. But, find me there, working on some pieces as well, writing on the Win Column. It's the wincolumn.ca, Calgary Flames blog site. So, find all my work there. All that's in my Twitter, though, so if you want to head over to the old Twitter machine and check out my stuff, you can see it all there.
Amazing. I think that'll do it then for this Calgary Flames deadline preview show. Ryan, hit that outro. That is 7 Canadian teams in the span of, week and a half. Going to be interesting. Some big ones coming the next couple days. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this one.